Hello, everybody. And yes, it's Wednesday. Did you uncork already? I did. I've been really good. I haven't had a drink since Monday. Is that being good? I don't do any of that dry January, like dry February. No, because things happen, pandemics happen, public schools not opening happen, and I need I need a little wine in my life. I need to look forward to this. Plus, my therapist told me, because he's Argentinian, that this is medicinal and that in Argentina, since he was a kid, every night his parents would have a glass of red wine and that there's nothing wrong with that. It's part of the culture. So there you go. There's nothing wrong with us enjoying a little bit of wine every night. Why not? And it's red too. What brand? I don't know. You know that I'm always like, whatever my husband brings me from Costco is perfectly fine. We are coming to you live from Chicago, Illinois. It's fantastic because it's 5 p.m. here and there's still daylight, which means there's a light at the end of this forever winter tunnel that we live in the Midwest. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited that you're here with us, that you're saying hello. Carolyn, Patty, Ezekiel, Sandy, it's so nice to be here with you. Mary, I'm so happy that Mary's joining me today for this show, because when I showed Mary the boots that I'm talking about, she got so excited because the line that we're going to talk about today is called Juno Jones, and they are steel-toed boots with women in mind. You know how they tell us constantly we can do anything, we can work in anything, we can be everything we want to be, but then they don't give us the tools to be comfortable in that job. Well, that's kind of like what we're talking about today. We're talking with the founder and creator of these boots called Juno Jones, and Emily Kaiser, who has had many jobs in her life, including attorney. She has a master's degree in communications. She's always thought about putting women first. And she did it as an attorney, advocating for victims of domestic violence. And all of a sudden, she finds herself being the owner of a of a trucking school. And so she's going to these meetings and she tells us all about it. And she's like, these poor women. Now we're going to freeze a little, but we're back. You know, we always have these issues. So Emily said, we're going to make this happen. And I have to admit that the moment I met Emily, from the moment I met her, she's always been an advocate for what she believes in. I met Emily in college because Emily is my first ever college roommate. And from the moment I met her, she was a vegetarian. She believed in women's rights, and she had no fear speaking out about what she thought and what she believed was our right and that we needed to demand it. So I want to introduce to you my beautiful, smart, amazing, versatile, well-rounded friend, Emily Kaiser.
Emily Soloby. I haven't heard my maiden name in a while.
I knew I was going to screw that up. No, I knew I was going to screw that up. I am good. How are you?
Oh my gosh, it is amazing to see you.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. You know what? There is nothing there. Like I told Em, this is all going to be like very rudimentary because there's no nice way to show you this, but let me show you this picture. I posted it today and I kind of love this picture. It's almost like a before and after of us. Look at this, Em. Look at us.
Oh my gosh. And my dog is barking. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh my gosh. Look at us. We're babies.
We were babies, but my friend, look at you rocking your boots way back in 92.
Oh my gosh, you're right. It's proof.
Yeah. And there's Ana Belaval trying to be real cool and real fan of Morrissey when she didn't have any idea what she was talking about.
Where did we get those skirts? I don't remember that.
I don't remember that either, but I have to say, I fell in love with Em the moment I met her. I was so worried about the roommate I would get, which happens in college all the time, because nowadays the kids just get, like, they can get a friend, they can talk to the potential roommate on Skype. Em and I were just paired together.
Yeah, we didn't know. I mean, I remember I walked in before you weren't there when I got there, but I saw
Mhm.
your photos and you were a fashion model at the time.
No, I wasn't.
And I was like, wow, my roommate is the coolest. I can't wait to meet her. So
And I mean, we're so different, but we got along so well.
yes. Oh yeah. I mean, I think we weren't that different. I mean, I think
No,
yeah, maybe like in terms of things that make you different, your first year of college, like music.
yeah,
But I mean, even fashion, we weren't that different. I think we
no.
borrowed each other's clothes.
Yes. And I have to admit, I think we had the same values. We loved our parents ferociously too. Like we were close to our families. And then, thanks to the magic of Facebook, the picture you see next to baby Emily and baby Anna is us in Chicago when Emily came to visit to go to a wedding. And thanks to Facebook, she connected with me and said, I want to see you. And it was like one of the happiest days of that year.
Oh, it was amazing to see you. Yeah, we got a chance to sit down and have lunch, I think, at one of your favorite diners, and it was great to reconnect.
I know with the kiddos. All right, tell me about these amazing boots that you came up with, and how did it all come about?
Sure. Well, as you mentioned in your amazing introduction, thank you so much for that. It was so kind. Um, I found myself as the co-owner of a transportation company. My husband and I took over a family business in the transportation industry, and we were doing truck driver training and large heavy equipment safety training. And we really built that company from a small mom and pop with a few trucks when we got it into more of a national consulting firm over about 10 or
Hmm.
11 years. So I would be as an executive in that position in my job, I would be running around going to client meetings, um, visiting people in offices or in my office, but then also out on job sites. And oh, there's a picture of my family.
I wanted to show Ryan and the kids.
Yes. Yeah. So I would be going back and forth. And that's funny that I had some of my boots on in that picture. You can see my boots
Hmm.
in it. I've always loved boots. And when I
Yep.
couldn't find, but I had boots, but they weren't safety boots. And for my job, I really needed those safety features. So
Hmm.
when I ended up getting myself some safety boots, I never wanted to wear them because they were so clunky and just
Yeah.
so cumbersome and didn't fit right, didn't look good with the rest of my clothing. So I got this idea to start Juno Jones. I began talking to women in transportation, but also in just other industries, and I realized what a market gap there was. So how to do it.
So much so, that when you did the Kickstarter, listen to this, guys. She opened a Kickstarter to begin her business, and by the next day, she had all the funding.
We were so grateful. I mean, honestly, we were just blown away by that. Yeah, 29 hours we fully funded the Kickstarter,
Mhm.
and everyone really from our Facebook community, Hazard Girls, joined in and backed us. From our Instagram page, joined in and passed it along to their friends, passed it along in Facebook groups and through emails. And before you knew it, we funded in just 29 hours.
Goodness me. So, what makes this boot perfect for women?
Well, I brought some so I can really show it to you.
Conveniently next to you.
Very conveniently. This is the raven color. I don't know. It's a little bit dark here,
Mhm.
but so
Yep.
this is our first style. It's called the Medi boot. We are going to be coming out. We have some other styles coming down the pipeline, but the Medi boot is like I mentioned, a steel toe boot. So it's impact and compression, and it's ASTM certified, so it's OSHA approved.
Mhm.
It's also got on the inside here, you can't see it, but there's a puncture system in here, puncture resistant system.
Mhm.
So if you step on nails, sharp objects, it cannot go through. So
Okay.
these are features that you do find in some safety boots. You don't find them in others. It's nice to have them all together in one boot that actually looks good. And the main thing about this is that it's made for a woman's foot shape. So when you see a lot of the common boots that you see that are safety boots out there, there's this saying in the footwear industry and in apparel industry called pink it and shrink it. I don't know if
Mhm.
you've heard that, but it's what a
Nope.
lot of companies will do to to accommodate women. Instead of building something especially for women, they'll take what's already made for a man and they'll just shrink it down and maybe slap some pink on it. And and it has this horrible name, Pink It and Shrink It. So we want to do everything we can to make that go away.
As you spoke, I'm like, oh crap, they mean make it pink and
Yes,
smaller.
that's exact. I mean, some people like to
Oh
with it, but you don't want everything pink just because.
no. Are you serious?
Yes,
Oh my
absolutely
God.
serious. Yeah, when I first started this company and I began speaking to, retailers and different people that were selling boots, the first thing they said was, "Please tell me they're not pink."
And they're not.
No,
Where do you make them?
they're made in León, Mexico.
Are they leather?
Yes, they are full grain leather.
Okay.
Here's the brown one. This is called espresso. It's a
Yeah.
little hard to see with the lighting, but
I tell you something. I'm going to get a pair. You know why? Because I stub my toe constantly. I step on everything. Like my husband is always telling me I'm getting new clogs. He's always said, I want to get you steel-toed shoes.
yes.
Because also with my job around town, I find myself everywhere and I am not great on my feet. And so this could save me.
Yeah. So we have TV producers
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
have bought them, but also a lot of people, like women working in, I don't know how much it's happening these days, but in theater, in backstage theater, because they're moving around this heavy equipment. And
yeah, stage-hands may need them. How are they in the weather though?
yeah, they're water resistant.
Cool.
So the leather itself is waterproofed leather. It's also treated to be chemical proofed. And one thing I also wanted to mention is that they are eco certified, meaning that the tannery that we get these from produces this according to the highest standards by the International Leather Working Group.
Mm-hmm.
And they're gold rated, which is the highest rating for eco-friendliness.
Why did you decide to do shoes and not go with other parts of the gear that women in other fields may need?
Well, I think the main reason is just that how much I love shoes, and it's something that I really wanted for myself. And also, I have a little bit of experience with shoes. I've taken a few shoemaking courses, so it's kind of something in my repertoire. But yeah, I mean, I think also there are other companies out there that are doing gear for women. It's just there aren't very many doing footwear.
I love it. I love it. What has been the hardest part of this journey? First of all, how did you adjust to owning a trucking business? Like when I read that and you told me that, I'm like, holy, these must be the smartest people in the world, the most versatile. Talk about switching gears.
Yeah, I came from law. After college, I went to law school, so I was practicing. I was a practicing attorney for a little while, and so switching into transportation was very challenging at first, but it was fun. I loved it. Really, the transition was more working from somebody else to having my own business. So I loved that aspect of it. So I knew that I sort of wanted to stay on that path, but I mean, I think the most challenging part about this journey with the shoes has absolutely been COVID, because every industry is facing supply chain problems. So we had such a delay, I guess, in trying to get these produced, but they're done, they're produced, and they're actually, I was telling you earlier, they're in trucks and they're like on the way to the United States. Couldn't be happier. So as soon as they get here, they'll be in stock. And then we can really get moving.
Can people pre-order them?
Yes, yeah. At this point, if they place an order, we're looking at mid-February, so it's only a few weeks out.
Yeah. And what are the sizes?
They run from size 6 through 12, and they include half sizes.
Perfect. Now, tell me about the Hazard Girls podcast.
Yeah. Did you ever think I would have a podcast? I never.
Why not? Jesus, I never thought you would own a trucking company. The heck?
Yeah, that's very true. That's one of the funny things about life, I guess. Yeah, the podcast has been awesome. We started as a Facebook community, Hazard Girls, and people just kind of joined in, hearing about it on Instagram, hearing it from friends, and it just became a group of supportive women in all different non-traditional fields. So from anything from construction and architecture to engineering and sciences, and then we have women in trades, welding and carpentry and things like that. So it really runs the gamut. But the podcast grew out of that. It became something. I did a few podcast interviews, and somebody came to me and said, a podcasting company came to me and said, "We'd like to offer you a podcast. Would you like to do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." Of course. Like, I want to give these women a voice. I want to share these amazing stories. So even though it's not like, I'm an introvert, so it didn't come naturally to me to do a podcast, but it's so worth it.
And I think that you're using all your talents to put this out there. I read a quote that was really interesting that you were saying, you were used to some inequalities in law, some people not recognizing you as a female lawyer. And then you switch to this field and you're like, not only are these women not recognized, but they're not offered the tools to do this job safely, right?
Right. So true.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, I think you'll find it in various industries that women are in the lower percentages in, but I've seen women on LinkedIn and on Instagram showing their gear that's given to them by their companies, and it's like, especially with the safety vests, they're gigantic, and it's really, not only is it, oh, it doesn't look good. That's not the problem. The problem is it's dangerous.
I was just gonna say, like, you can't just leave room there when you're going to be putting yourself at risk.
It's so dangerous. And studies have found, government studies have found that more women are injured on the job place because of their gear not fitting, whether it's getting caught on something or just slipping off of them. Mm-hmm. So it's a huge issue, and it is starting to be addressed. There are companies that are out there, mostly like small, like me, women-owned companies that are trying to solve this problem.
Were you always entrepreneurial?
Yes.
Really?
Maybe not in college, that first year at American, but yeah, I used to make t-shirts, and I would go to the concerts and sell them. And I had a little label in the back that had like a star and it had my name. Yeah, I used to sell all kinds of stuff. I used to sell plants when I was really little.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, I was reading too that your mom, who I think is one of the most elegant, beautiful women I've ever seen, and there's something about you, both of you, and your demeanor that just brings me peace. I don't know why. You guys, like, just hanging out with you just brings me peace. That your mom was your inspiration.
My mom is has always been such a fashion inspiration for me, because ever since I was a little girl, she really hammered into my head that quality is the most important thing, and classic style is so important. And I'm sure she wasn't thrilled with some of the phases I went through. but my mom
we all go through a thrift store space. Don't worry.
Yeah, my mom always taught me about good quality fabrics and classic cuts and things like that. So she really inspired me in a lot of ways.
Look at this. So fun. Anna, Emily, these boots are gorgeous. Can't wait to check them out, as well as the Hazard Girls podcast. I love this. I love this. Oh, someone said that wide width. What about if you have a wide foot?
These are a B width, so they're right in the middle, but they're not skinny and narrow. However, wide widths are on our radar, and we're going to be probably doing that over the next, probably by 2022.
By 2022. Are you still a part of the other business?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Well, and I'm a co-owner of that business, so I serve as, you can't get out of these things. You know how it is. Like,
no.
Even though Juno Jones is my full-time gig right now, I'm really, I'm a consultant. I'm reviewing contracts. There's always things that pop across my desk. So
Yeah, that law degree, put it to work, girl. I want to show, because I don't think I did, the picture of Hazard Girls. Let me know if you see it, Em. Is it right there?
yes.
How often do you do this podcast, and where can people find it?
The podcast is weekly. They can find it on any of their favorite podcast stations, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the major ones, and it comes out every Tuesday.
And I'm going to admit this, and I'm probably going to embarrass my mother, but I have to tell you that first year living with you, I learned so much from you by just watching the way that you lived your authenticity. And I know we were freshmen in college, and I know that we weren't defined, and I didn't know if you were going to be an attorney or what you were going to do with your life. But there was something about the way you lived your life, and you were the first vegetarian I met. Isn't that pathetic? And I remember taking you to Puerto Rico and my mother going, what are we going to do with a vegetarian? And we're like, we're going to do it. We're going to take her to eat everywhere. We're going to take her to have fun. And life does not need to be a square, and you don't need to be defined constantly. So it doesn't surprise me that you have had your mission to empower women, but you have found different avenues to do it in.
Yes. Oh my gosh, your mom and your family they were so good to me, making me all that vegetarian food. It was amazing. I still remember everything I ate. It was so delicious.
I remember going to one of the small shacks, and Emily wanted to try mofongo, which is a ball of plantain. But we put pork and everything. It's a mashed pork of a ball of plantain. And I had to tell the woman, please, no pork. What? No pork, no chicken broth. Just give her the ball of mofongo and call it a day. And vegetarian Latinos are few and far between back then. And so the lady's like, but what is that poor girl going to taste? She's going to taste the plantain. Deal with it. I remember one time we went to the cafeteria, and the pasta, you had the marinara sauce, and there was a speck of meat, and you were like, listen, this had meat. This can make me sick. And I'm like, oh yeah, I can totally do that. I can stand up for myself. Swear to God, Em, the things that I took from that. Oh yeah. And then all of a sudden I find out that you're an attorney. You wanted to get a tattoo. And my mother, Emily's going to get a tattoo. Where is she going to get a tattoo? If Emily wants to be an attorney, Emily can't get a tattoo where everyone sees it. And I'm like, Emily's going to get a tattoo wherever the hell she wants a tattoo.
That's funny. One of my friends from American ended up being an attorney, and he has 2 full sleeves of tattoos. So we have to introduce him to your mom.
What's great about my mom and dad, as you know, is that they have evolved, right? And they have learned from I think that having children late, like my parents had my brother and I for their generation later in life, they had to evolve because the generation of children of their kids were not ours. So, they never expected me to live this far away and to do what I do. They thought I was going to be Christian. I'm poor, and I clearly am not.
But you always wanted to be a
Yeah.
journalist.
Yes.
I mean, I remember you had a mentor back
Mm-hmm.
then that helped you from Puerto
Mm-hmm.
Rico. So I mean, that's funny that you said that. For me, authenticity was something that you admired about me. What I admired about you more than anything, and it just really blew my mind, is how you knew exactly what you wanted to do. And I think that is so rare. You're one of the few people. My aunt is the same way, but she's one of the few people I knew until I met you. And it's, and here you are. You're doing it. You always knew you wanted to do it. You worked toward it. It's great.
But you know what I think that was hard from being that way, that I think it's a hard lesson to learn. You have that goal, but you have to learn that life is not plan A. When you're that driven and you think that, this is the career you want and the path will be A, B, C, and D, life is going to throw you these curveballs. And for someone like me, those curveballs were like, wait, what? No, this wasn't in the plan, and you have to adjust. Whereas you saw opportunities and you decided to be an attorney and you were going to be, you were going to do this kind of law. And then you got a master's degree in communications. How did that come about?
Yes, I know. And I'm glad you brought that up because it seems so random that I do a podcast. But then I remembered, oh, wait a minute, I have a master's in broadcasting, telecommunications, and mass media, which, it's not something that I even thought I would, even a few years after, didn't think I'd be using. And then here I am using it for the podcast. So it worked out. Hey, Anna, did you get disconnected?
I pressed the wrong button.
I was about to start asking your audience some questions.
I know. Look at you, Emily. Look at you. So I think I missed the part when you decided to do your master's in communication. Why did you decide to do that?
Yeah, I decided to do a master's in communications because I was interested in, I knew I wanted to help women, like I was saying, and in my mind, I thought, well, I'll make documentaries. I'll do documentaries about women. So I went back to grad school to try to work on that. I thought maybe I would connect it all with the law. But, along the way, how we just meet these strange paths and we take a turn. And I ended up not using the broadcasting degree at first. But now I have my podcast. And I was saying earlier that sometimes I think it's so random that I have a podcast, but then I remember, oh, wait, I do have a broadcasting degree. It's not the craziest thing in the entire world.
I'm only going to ask you for 3 lessons because we're young.
Okay.
I ask older people than us for 5.
Oh, I'm so flattered.
But I think you and I, we're still slowly learning.
Yes.
3 life lessons you've learned throughout this path that your life has taken.
Well, it's something we were just talking about where you told me, how you were so driven. You had one thing you knew you wanted to do and you were working toward a goal. And for me, it was more a general feeling of wanting to make change and help women. I didn't know how I was going to do it. But there were so many ways that I wanted to do something. So I would, in my head, I'm like, I really want to write a book. I really want to make documentaries. I just had so many, and I still do, like ideas about what I want to do. So my lesson, I think, is that I think I started to realize this after I had my children, and I realized how short time was, that there just aren't all the hours in a day and years in life that you want. You really have to just choose something. And so for me, it was just, pick one of the things. So I literally sat down and I would just make a list of all the things I wanted to do. And it was never a problem of like, there was nothing I wanted to do. There was just too much. And I would scatter my efforts and they would spread too thin and nothing would get done. So I think by really just deciding you're going to hone in on something, take that one thing, even if sometimes you're like, oh, but I really want to write that children's book. You just have to focus and and just focus on just do that thing. So that's really the main lesson, I think. You asked me for 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, I think at this age, like we've been through many relationships, known many people. For me, I think if you ever feel like you're not with the right people, like whether that is your friends or your coworkers or your colleagues in your business or your partner, just keep looking, because there have been times in my life where I felt maybe less encouraged, more stagnant. And I realized looking back, it's because of who I was surrounding myself with. So always surround yourself with people that are supportive.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I guess the last thing I would say is learn to be a good listener. And I'm still working on this, but I think, my podcast has helped me a lot with this.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, what for me, as I mentioned, I'm an introvert. So a lot of times, like earlier in my life, when people were talking, maybe I was too busy thinking, what am I going to say? What's my next thing that I'm going to say? but I think you really have to, especially if you have a business and you want to bring the public what they are asking for, you really have to learn to be a good listener. And I think I'm getting much better at that. And my podcast has helped me with that tremendously.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to post, here we go. I'm going to put the JunoJones.com website so that people can pre-order her awesome boots, which I will do. And also your podcast, it's called Hazard Girls.
Yes, Hazard Girls, Women in Non-Traditional Fields.
I love it. Check it out. Emily, I'm so proud of you. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad we finally get to hang out. It takes a pandemic, but what are you going to do?
I know. One day, like, we'll get Ryan and Steve and you and I together a night in Chicago or in Philly.
Yes. I'll be in Chicago in the fall. Maybe the pandemic will be all gone.
Really? Why?
I'm involved with this organization called Empowering Women in Industry, and they're having a conference, and we're going to have a fashion show of all fashionable items for women in industry and hazardous fields.
We'll talk about it off camera to see what we can do about that. All right. Love you, Em.
Love you so much. Thank you.
Bye. So there you go, Emily Soloby of Juno Jones. And one thing that she didn't say, and I want to post again the picture of the boots so that you can see it. One thing that I wanted to tell you, hold on, let me find it so that you can see these awesome boots because I kind of am obsessed. Here we go. You can pre-order them. They're on their way from Mexico right now. And they're made of leather, as you heard. They're steel-toed, and they protect you from stepping on anything. And it's not a construction boot. Anyone in those kinds of fields will enjoy this boot, and even stagehands who are moving props around, who are building sets. You know, and it's a women-owned business, and I think it's absolutely so cool that she found a need and fulfilled it. And so, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. If you are on YouTube, let me know what you thought. Questions, Emily will always check and answer, and check out her website. And I will see you back next Wednesday on Wednesday Wine. Have a great night, everybody.